sky still pink in the sunset. You know I never wanna make you upset. How did I become so obsessed with this?
10 extinct sports. You just need to take a gander at the timetable for the Olympic Games to see the various scope of sports delighted in by competitors and onlookers around the globe. Numerous games have been around for hundreds or even a huge number of years, and a match can draw countless onlookers. Others might be increasingly dark yet require critical aptitude from participants. There are, in any case, various games that were once colossally well-known, yet which have since blurred in unmistakable quality. A large portion of these games presented genuine risk to the members, observers, and now and then the creatures in question. You've presumably known about some of these games, yet you absolutely don't see them being played to a similar degree as football or b-ball nowadays. 10. Chariot racing. The game of chariot dashing was so well known in antiquated Greece and Rome that the avenues would be abandoned when a race was on. The most punctual composed notice of chariot hustling is in Homer's Iliad. The races were the essential occasion of the most punctual Olympic Games. Just as numerous Greek and Roman festivals, racers were pulled by up to 4 ponies around 8.4-kilometer (5.2 miles) course in shaky carriages. In antiquated Rome, chariots would be isolated into groups or hues with up to 3 chariots for each group. Like present-day sports, fans would back their pick groups, wearing the group hues in support. There seemed to have been barely any standards engaged with the game, with drivers whipping their ponies as well as adversaries. The speeding chariots were inclined to impact, with drivers frequently murdered or genuinely harmed in the destruction or tangled in the ponies' reins. The gore added to the diversion for the spectators. The perilous game was one route for slaves or the devastated to improve their status throughout everyday life, acquiring critical entireties of cash on the off chance that they became effective charioteers. The Circus Maximus was the biggest reason manufactured chariot hustling scene, with a limit of more than 150,000 onlookers, is as yet one of the biggest wearing fields at any point assembled. Chariot hustling in the long run blurred into annihilation after the fall of the Roman Empire. 9. Jousting. The greater part of us know about the medieval game of jousting in stories of knights winning a reasonable woman's kindness on the field. Early competitions appeared as scuffles, where gatherings of jousters occupied with mock fights as a preparation practice for genuine battle. Singular jousts, or tilts, turned out to be increasingly mainstream during the 15th century. 2. Defensive. Layer-clad horsemen would confront each other at the parts of the bargains, accusing at each other of spears leveled as they sped past one another. Every rival would endeavor to either thump his adversary from his pony or break his shield. The energizers would proceed and down the field until one rival guaranteed triumph. An option, tilt, would see horsemen speeding toward a metal ring, through which they needed to skewer their lance. Jousting was suspended for less fierce equestrian games during the 17th century. Showy jousting reenactments can in any case be found in some medieval society occasions today. 8. Board track racing. Photograph credit. Wikimedia Commons. Board track hustling was a famous U.S. motorsport during the prior pieces of the 20th century. Bike racers sped around round wooden tracks, which were banked like cutting-edge velodromes. These motordromes were in the long run adjusted to suit early vehicle dashing. They were modest to develop yet exorbitant to keep up with a normal track, enduring only 3 years. The primary board tracks showed up in Los Angeles in around 1909, and swarms were before long running to watch the new dashing scene around the U.S. Board track hustling was an exceptionally hazardous game, with motordromes in the end named murderdromes in certain papers. Hustling bicycles were worked for most extreme speed yet had no brakes, bringing about continuous genuine mishaps in which riders as well as onlookers were harmed or executed. The game vanished during the Great Depression during the 1930s. 7. Outdoors. Not to be mistaken for the advanced hobby of setting up a shelter in nature, outdoors or campion. was a medieval ball game which shapes the reason for current football games. One of the soonest references to outdoors goes back to the 14th century. Matches were held between contending areas, as a rule after chapel on Sunday, with the article being to convey the ball to the contrary side of town. Teams of 10 to 15 players would confront one another while a ball was tossed into the air. A player would get the ball, going through rivals and protected by his group to convey the ball to his objective. Much the same as advanced football, the odd fight between rival groups and supporters was normal. 6. Naumachia. Roman games lovers would rush to watch a decent episode of Naumachia. Reason manufactured boats were set in a water-filled field and kept an eye on with crew members who might reenact an ocean fight. The willing members were frequently detainees or slaves who had little choice, however, to battle. The boats were frequently kept an eye on by convicts who combat to the passing in an overwhelmed amphitheater for the diversion of onlookers. The first Naumachia was held in 46 BC to observe Julius Caesar's triumph over Pompey. More than 6,000 individuals had to battle in the false maritime fight to fortify Caesar's maritime ability. Not just the reluctant warriors were slaughtered in the display, yet spectators from all over Italy were said to have been squashed in the crowds. Naumachiae were expensive in both human and budgetary terms to perform, and the training vanished after the Flavian time frame during the principal century AD. 5. Club swinging. Club swinging started in India as a method for creating quality and versatility in troopers. The British Army consolidated club swinging into their physical exercise schedules, and homesteaders brought the old Indian exercise clubs home. Club swinging got mainstream with men and women the same during the Victorian period. Exercise rooms were built up explicitly for the sport. Club swinging showed up as a gymnastic game at the Summer Olympics in 1904 and 1932, the two of which were held in the United States. Contenders held a bowling pin-molded club in each hand, swinging them around in a convoluted daily practice of moves in an odd blend of shuffling and beat tumbling. The game kept up prevalence in the U.S. until the 1950s. The last American championship was held in 1953. 4. Fox tossing. It's not hard to perceive any reason why the brutal blood game of fox hurling has vanished into the history books. Fox hurling was a mainstream sport among European honorability during the 17th and 18th centuries. Caged foxes, or different creatures, would be discharged into a field, stumbling into slings laid over the ground. Two partners would be looking out for either end of the sling, rapidly catching the wild creatures and tossing them high into the air. The group with the most elevated toss would be pronounced the winner, despite the regular wounds from clearly alarmed wild creatures endeavoring to get away. The game was viewed as delicate enough for women to take an interest in. Any foxes that were not slaughtered during the hurling procedure would be beat to death toward the finish of the competition. 3. Natalaker. Natalaker was an antiquated Nordic game delighted in by the Vikings, thought to be like advanced lacrosse. Players utilized sticks in their hands to hit a hard wooden ball toward an objective. Physical body contact was profoundly empowered and was a piece of the general target of the game. Members of adversary groups would be coordinated up 2 by 2 who needed to stay with one another for the whole game and couldn't meddle with anybody other than their assigned rival. Beside pursuing your adversary, it was satisfactory to hit your opponent with a stick and wrestle him to the ground. It was not incredible for players to be slaughtered during Natalaker matches. The game was like a fight in which contradicting sets would battle each other for the general grade of the group. The point of going the ball through an objective appeared to have been an auxiliary thought. Games could keep going the entire day on an ice-shrouded field. 2. Mesoamerican ball game. An old game played in Mesoamerica included players on a long, restricted court averaging 60 meters 200 feet long, utilizing their hips to keep a ball from tumbling to the ground. A few cycles of the game permitted the utilization of other body parts. The game had legendary and profound essentialness to the Maya. With enormous stone courts frequently a point of convergence in urban areas, consecrated centers, players plan to go the ball through one of 3 huge stone rings set on either side of the court, without utilizing their hands. The Great Ball Court at Chichen Itza has rings set at 8 meters 26 feet high, presented previously. Going a ball through these rings would have been no little accomplishment. Balls were somewhere in the range of 10 and 30 centimeters, 4 to 12 in breadth, engaged 0.5 to 3.5 kilograms, 1.1 to 7.7 pounds. A bigger ball could be deadly if a player was struck by it at high speed. Archaeological proof shows different triumph trophies, remembering portrayals of human head with a handle for one side, which may have been genuine heads in before renditions, stone burdens, and hand-cut stones. The game could have life and passing noteworthiness, with losing groups now and then yielded to the divine beings. 1. Pankration. Pankration was one of the most mainstream sports of the early Olympics and was first brought into the Olympic Games in 648 BC. Old Greeks considered the game an exhibit of solidarity and procedure. Pankration was a to some degree odd mix of boxing and wrestling. The main standards were no gnawing and no gouging the eyes, nose, or mouth. At first, warriors battled naked and oiled. Afterward, thong wrappings were set on all fours. In upstanding pankration, the failure was the principal soldier to contact the ground multiple times.